How you doing? Welcome to another video. I'm Kevin O'Hara for habitsfeed2.com. If you don't know me, we create videos and we help people to stop drinking alcohol. Today's question is, how long does alcohol withdrawal last? How long do the symptoms last? It's not an easy answer, right? Because it depends on the person, it depends on the individual. It's not an easy answer because it also depends on what you're talking about when you're talking about withdrawal. Doctor jargon, let's look at that first. When you go to a doctor and you talk about withdrawal with a doctor, they're going to give you a list of symptoms that is as long as their arm. So you're talking on the mild end, jitters, or maybe a headache, or maybe sweats. And then you go up to the extreme end of this, and people are getting seizures, or they've got delirium tremens, or they could have heart failure because of it, right? Depending on many different factors. So I want to look at it, and all I can look at it for, I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to speak to you in that way. I look at it from a habit perspective. I look at it from the perspective of that majority in the middle, right? Not the 5% at the beginning who don't really drink alcohol, nor the people who are at risk of severe alcohol withdrawal right at the end of that. I'm going to look at people in the middle of this, right? So what are you gonna have in a broad sense? In a broad sense, look at what withdrawal is. Withdrawal is simply your body pining for what you have grown, or what it has grown accustomed to, what your body and your mind have grown accustomed to, right? So again, I'm not talking about the extreme here, right? I'm not talking about somebody who's drank that much alcohol and drank it over such a period of time that they cannot stop drinking alcohol without that severe end of the deal. Where they're landing up in hospital because they're getting the DTs, they're getting seizures, they're getting hallucinations, and they have great risk of dropping dead not because of stopping drinking, but because of all the alcohol that they've already consumed, all the damage that has already been done. That much damage that the body has got so much tolerance to alcohol, it's adapted so much to alcohol being in your system that it's completely dangerous for them to stop. So you have to look at it from the perspective of more alcohol. The more alcohol you drink, the more withdrawal you're going to get in general, right? As a general rule. The way to think about this is, you can be a big bloke, right, and stand next to a small bloke, and you're going to have a lot more tolerance for alcohol because you're big. You just absorb the alcohol better. You've got a bigger liver. You've just got a different set of circumstances in your way. If you've been drinking for a long time and you've got a lot of damage, then the alcohol withdrawal is going to affect you a lot more than it's not. If you're a male, the alcohol withdrawal will affect you depending on how much you've drank again. In comparison to a female. So in general, from that perspective, the more alcohol you drink, the more withdrawal you're going to get, right? So the heavier you drink, the longer you drink, the more alcohol withdrawal you're going to get. That's the best way of putting it. Now, every time you stop drinking alcohol, right, and I'm talking about not when you decide that you don't want to drink alcohol anymore, but at the end of a drinking session. Right? Every time you drink alcohol for a session, you stop drinking alcohol until the next day. And that period between tonight and the next day, you're going to have withdrawal in that. It's like the cigarettes. Think about the cigarettes when if you've ever smoked, and let's say that you smoke one every hour. The only reason you're smoking one the next hour is because in between that hour, you're starting to feel the withdrawal effect. And that is exactly the same thing, a different set of parameters, but very similar to what you're going through with the withdrawal. Now, the third thing is that withdrawal becomes avoidance, right? It becomes withdrawal avoidance the more that you drink. So the more you drink, the longer you drink, the more that you're drinking to avoid the inevitable withdrawal that's coming up, right? That's why people have the hair of the dog, right? It's not because that shit feeling that they're getting that's driving them to have a drink. It's not just the hangover, it's the withdrawal as well, right? So you have to think that, you take that into account. You've got several transformations that are happening in your body over time, right? You've got the physical adaptation, so that neurotransmitters are changing. There's less neurotransmitters for the same amount of alcohol, so you need to up the dosage of alcohol to get the same amount of neurotransmitters firing off. There's less receptors for the dopamine receptors or other receptors for the neurotransmitter receptors. There's more liver tolerance, so your liver starts to tolerate a lot more. And just in general, you've got a physical adaptation. That's where the tolerance comes into it, and it becomes a vicious cycle. You need to drink more in order to get the same buzz. You need to drink more in order to avoid the withdrawal, right? So then you've got the psychological adaptation, right, which is the habit. The more you drink, the more often you drink, the more it's going to become a habit. It becomes a routine for you to drink at a certain amount of time. The more triggers you're going to have, right? You know, if you're drinking in the same place with the same people, those triggers will just become stronger and stronger and stronger. So the triggers then become conditioned into the response, and you start to really get you anticipate. So it's not just when you start drinking that the dopamine and the neurotransmitters are firing off. It's when you start anticipating it. So early in the day, you know, you're looking forward to having your drinks, you know. I've gone through all this myself. So if we look at this in a broad sense, and I'm saying again, we're talking about the vast majority of people here, not the people at the either end of the spectrum. Now, when we look at this from a broad sense, let's come back to looking at this from a broad sense again. And we have to look at that spectrum. We're looking at the vast majority of people on that spectrum, not the people that are on the far end of this, the people that are at risk of severe alcohol withdrawal, but the people in the middle. They're pining. The withdrawal is basically their body and their mind pining for what they've grown accustomed to again, right? So you have to have patience, right, in order for the adaptation to weaken, right? To adapt to the new way, to not having alcohol in your system, right? You have to allow that time. You have to allow patience for the adaptation of new routines and for the old habit to die away and the new habit to come in. You have to have patience with the pleasure pathways so they adapt. And the only way of doing that is, again, you feed you feed what grows. So if you keep feeding the alcohol habit, then that's going to grow. If you keep feeding the alcohol habit, then the withdrawal is going to grow at the other end of that. So you have to think about these things, you know. If you're looking for help to stop drinking alcohol, if you're at that stage, we've got a preparation module, which is part of our Habits Unplugged program. It's for the time being, it's absolutely free. So you can get the first 2 weeks of it for free. Just go into the description box below and you'll click on the link there, leave your name and email address. And I'd love to hear your comments on this. You know, don't tell me how I'm wrong about this in terms of, you know, the severity of if you're at the high end of that. I know that, right? I'm not talking about those people, right? I understand that some people, if you drink enough alcohol, right, you're going to get the worst of the alcohol withdrawal. You know, if you keep walking in the middle of a motorway, a highway, you're eventually going to get knocked down. And that's the way I think about this, right? So I'm trying to get people to stop doing what they're doing to themselves a lot earlier, right? So that the withdrawal is not as bad. You know, the consequences are not as bad, you know, if they continue to drink. So that's my 2 pence worth today. Bit of a rant, but hey, it is what it is. Take care of yourself. Let me know if you have any questions, any topics you want me to cover in the comments down below. And really appreciate everybody. Appreciate your questions, keep them coming. Appreciate your comments, keep them coming. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Take care. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.